One Jim Coventry from Rotowire here with the Week 8 Fantasy Football Players to Avoid. All right, start with the quarterbacks. Number 5, count them down. Jared Goff failed to throw a touchdown each of his last 2 games while also failing to hit 230 yards. Now I understand Amon-Ra St. Brown got knocked out of last week's game early, and the prior week, Amon-Ra St. Brown played a few snaps in his return from injury. But overall, there are some disturbing trends. The offensive line in Detroit, we thought was going to be an outstanding line. They've had their share of struggles. Now we can write off some of this problem with Jared Goff. Today faced a couple of good pass rushes, which have overwhelmed the line. So the jury's going to be out a bit. Maybe DeAndre Swift comes back this week, but ultimately, Jared Goff has a lot of limitations in his game. And the Lions were doing a great job of coming from behind last year and earlier this season. But the recent trend is troubling, and I still am more inclined to be nervous about Jared Goff than optimistic. Jamison Williams, those were hoping he'd come back. It looks like it's going to be quite a while. Hey, Bob. All right, so Jared Goff is a player who is trending down a bit now, but we'll keep an eye on this week's game. We'll see how they do as they face a little less crazy pass rushes, but he was really baited into some big mistakes this past week. Matthew Stafford coming out of the bye. I hate to throw shade on Matthew Stafford after winning that Super Bowl, but 2 total touchdown passes over his last 3 games, and he's only gone over 255 yards once during that time. They tricked Dallas with a couple big downfield plays. Now, look, a lot of people are going to think Sean McVay in the bye came up with some things to kind of correct. The problem is the offensive line. They're down to third stringers at a lot of different positions. And this year's NFL, you've heard me say in prior shows, teams are using 5-man fronts. They're using stunts. Teams are taking advantage of weaknesses in offensive lines. And the Rams, it's like pick your spot to attack. And there's no level of scheming that overcomes that. And Matthew Stafford last year was carving up the blitz, but you don't have the blitz to get him right now. You could get him with a regular rush, and that's problematic because again, with the tight zones, you can get Cooper Kupp underneath all day. But you notice the explosives aren't there as they were. I'm hopeful they move Allen Robinson to the slot a lot more and put Kupp in personnel grouping stacks, but that said, I just don't think that offensive line is going to allow them to get rolling here. So I am pessimistic on Matthew Stafford, especially this week against San Francisco. And I just filmed a video for somebody about a bet this week. The 49ers are minus 1.5 against the Rams, and it is on the road. Now, I know the Rams beat them in the playoffs. 49ers have won 7 straight regular season games against them. And Nick Bosa and company, it's going to be curtains for that offense with the Rams, with the pressure in that offensive line. So that said, I do think that's a great bet this week in the 49ers, I believe. All right, last quarterback. Ryan Tannehill hasn't reached 182 yards in any of his last 3 games, and now he has a dinged-up ankle. The running game is going well. He really does lack high-level receiving weapons. We love Robert Woods as a player, very good route runner, but doesn't offer much in the way of explosiveness. That's problematic. And, the rookie Burks, Treylon Burks, he's still down on the injured reserve for a period of time. The tight end position hasn't been used well. Not that it was going to be explosive anyway. Hooper had the amazing catch last week. But Ryan Tannehill is not a player who looks to be helping anybody anytime soon. All right, number 4, the tight ends. All right, I know we bang the drum on Kyle Pitts all the time, but I need you to understand a few things if you haven't looked at it this way yet. Kyle Pitts is a superstar. A fantasy football bust, NFL superstar. He's blocking a lot. Not why you spend the number 4 pick in a draft on a guy, right? But he's hardly running any routes. It's like 12, 13 routes a game, and that's over the last couple of games. It's just he's not participating. And I know he had the near miss on the touchdown last week. Great. But the problem still becomes that he's not running routes. And if you don't run routes as a tight end, you don't get catches. And Marcus Mariota is throwing the ball 13 and 14 times in the last 2 games. And last week was a great opportunity. They had nothing to lose by abandoning the run in the second half of the game, and yet they still didn't turn him loose. Irv Smith is the next one. I love Irv Smith as a player. I think he has a lot going for him. But the Minnesota Vikings offense is obviously driven. It's a three-man show, and really a three and an A, right? Because we got Justin Jefferson, and of course Kirk Cousins is running the show, and Dalvin Cook, and Adam Thielen is getting 7 to 9 targets a game. There just isn't much left for Irv Smith. He's getting 4 or 5 targets a game, but they're not always the most efficient targets, and he's not getting any big plays out of it. And yes, he can score touchdowns on occasion, but there won't be that many of them there for him. So therefore, the low target share makes Irv Smith a player who's not helping out fantasy managers. Number 3, the wide receivers. Brandon Cooks hasn't reached 60 yards in any of his last 3 games. Now, he has a touchdown in there. The yardage hasn't been there. Now, Nico Collins hurt his groin, and I don't know what his status for this week is. He's iffy, and I don't even know that him getting involved has hurt Cooks. It's just that it's not going on this year. Davis Mills is throwing to others. Cooks isn't getting the crazy target share that he had been getting. The run game with Dameon Pierce is going very well. So it's just that Cooks is not getting the high number of targets he once had. Now, of course, there's the talk that he could be traded. Don't know how true that is. You never know in the NFL. Trades are not that common. But right now with the Texans, could he have a game? Yes, he's Brandon Cooks, right? But right now I'm more inclined to say Brandon Cooks is not going to get enough targets to be the factor that he is going to be. And and back to Irv Smith, yeah, Bob, I know Arizona is terrible against tight ends. Remember this, I believe they were the team. I don't want to jump the gun. I want to believe that the team that played T.J. Hockenson in the 170. No, it was Seattle. So, but they're bad against tight ends. There's no question. And but I don't think the Minnesota game plan is going to be hammer Irv Smith. Remember, I don't buy into the Marco Wilson and the cornerbacks at all. This is a Justin Jefferson game. Nobody fears those corners. So it's not like we're going to attack the tight end. We're going to attack the cornerbacks. Justin Jefferson could get 170 yards in this game, and Thielen's still going to get his 7 to 9 targets, and Dalvin Cook is going to have success on the ground. So I agree the matchup's good. I just don't think he's a function of the game plan, especially this week with the advantage they have at receiver coming out of a bye too. Good point, though. Very good point. Cortland Sutton, 5 catches for 37 yards over his last 2 games. Start of the season, great. But right now, don't know what we're getting out of Russell Wilson. Maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Last week he had the Sauce Gardner treatment, and he had Brett Rippon at quarterback. Ultimately, if Wilson has a shoulder issue, which he may. I know he just is a declining quarterback. Thanks, Coach Glenn Hayes. Appreciate that. But ultimately, the problem going to be for Sutton, if Wilson isn't 100% and he can't drive the ball down to Sutton because he locks on him, and the problem is he's not going to get those targets. And defenses now basically realize that Wilson is what he is. And so they know he wants to throw deep. They want to make him be a quarterback, make him throw underneath, make him throw passes he's not comfortable throwing. And ultimately, it's just a very bad situation. Cortland, something like I have some investment in him in the preseason, but man, we got to revisit the stuff every week. We can't just say we're in on a player. Right now, Sutton's stock is dropping, and I don't know right now what the answer is, but it's not Russell Wilson. Drake London, again, the Kyle Pitts thing, right? He has 12 targets over the last 3 games. And last week it was 1. It was like a 4, a 7, and a 1. And again, problematic. They're not throwing the ball. And over the last 3 games, London has a total of 94 yards. That's not even flex consideration. London is going to be a star in this league too. But under the current configuration, and he's blocking. He's not running routes on all of his plays. I was looking at his route participation. I don't have that one committed to memory. It wasn't impressive at all. So right now, very hard to play him. And then loved Romeo Doubs earlier in the season. Rostered him in a number of spots, but he has only caught 7 of 18 targets over his last 3 games, and it's 50 yards. And he's getting looks. But right now, I saw in the end of that last Green Bay game, I think my problem was that it was clear Rodgers wasn't happy with anybody. Torres out there, Mari Rodgers is out there, and then finally they figure out, like in the fourth quarter, Aaron Jones is our best wide receiver. He's a running back, but he is their best wide receiver. They get him out on the outside, and guess what? He beats the defender because you're not going to put a corner on him, especially if you motion him out of the backfield. And so they find him. touchdown, there you have it. So if they can figure out to keep using Aaron Jones, that's great. But Doubs right now, the chemistry with Rodgers isn't there. Rodgers' patience with players always grows thin, and you just wonder how many more targets are coming when you're catching less than half of them. And I know some of those were downfield targets and they're lower risk, but lately it hasn't been all downfield shots. Last week it was more short intermediate. Very nervous. Now, Robbie Anderson, a lot of people were excited. He comes over to the Cardinals. And understandably, they acquire him on a Monday last week. They play on a Thursday. So, of course, he only had 18% of the snaps and one target. I'm not bullish on Robbie Anderson. Basically, to me, he's a situational deep threat. He's had 2 good seasons. He had a good one with the Jets, and he had the year where they miscast him. They gave him DJ Moore's role. DJ Moore had Anderson's role, and Anderson was like thriving when DJ Moore could have been going through the roof. And then finally after week 11, they're like, oh, wait, we screwed this up. And then since then, Anderson has been done very little. Situational deep threat. And if you think about Kyler Murray, what are the deep plays he makes? They're ad-libbed, right? He gets under pressure, breaks contain, buys time. He needs somebody who is like a playground type of receiver, a guy that can just get in the open field and do crazy things. To me, that Anderson's not that guy. He's a tiny guy. He can't be 200 pounds, and he's like 6'3". Well, he's great in a structured downfield play action, deep shot offense. That's not this offense. To me, he does not fit Kyler Murray at all. All right, number 2, the running backs. And if I see questions, I will try to get those at the end, so hang with me. And if you're on YouTube, please smash the like button, please. I appreciate it. And subscribe would be great, too. And if you want free time behind the Rotowire wall, 2 days behind the paywall, you get everything we have without a credit card. Rotowire.com/try. Email address, in for 2 days. See all the great stuff we have. All right, the running backs. Over the last 2 games, Kareem Hunt, listen to this. Kareem Hunt, 9 carries. 16 yards and 1 catch for 4 yards. He has a touchdown. Look, Nick Chubb is putting up career numbers. And Kareem Hunt is putting up career low numbers. So they're in the same offense, the same offensive line, same play design. Hunt has always had the benefit of being the number 2. You come in as a change of pace, and after Nick Chubb is softening up a defense, the fast guy comes in, you can really eat. Something's up. He's too young to be aging. He's young, but maybe he's having a bad season. But nonetheless, he is not playing well. And it's hard for me to see anything on film that says, guess what? It's turning around. I don't think it is. And people are saying maybe he'll get traded. Maybe, but he doesn't look good. And if you can't do it behind the Browns line and the Browns offensive scheme, how do you do it elsewhere? So something to think about. But right now, he still has name value. So if you're rostering him in fantasy, he's a player you could trade, because a lot of people get really excited when they hear the name Kareem Hunt, and they're just going to think, oh, well, he's playing behind Nick Chubb. Of course he's not doing anything. It's not looking good. All right, Isiah Pacheco, 8 carries for 43 yards last week as the technical starter. Remember, he needed that 17-yard garbage time run when the game was out of hand to put those numbers up. So, and I know I talked about this in yesterday's show, but we're on the show, it matches. So anyway, here's the point I want to make if you missed yesterday. Pacheco was a starter. And when you read Andy Reid's comments, it had to do with pass protection. They were playing the 49ers and Nick Bosa, and the game plan was masterful. They really slowed down the 49ers pass rush. Part of that was having Isiah Pacheco involved in pass protection, chipping. They would chip with a tight end. They would chip with a running back. Pacheco was part of that. But Pacheco only saw 30% of the snaps, and McKinnon saw 27, and it was CEH had 27%. Who was the winner? McKinnon saw the most snaps of them all. So this backfield is going to be week to week. But here's the point. I go back to the preseason. When everybody was up, hey, Anthony, when everybody was crazy about Pacheco in the preseason, Andy Reid made a very obvious to me comment, but not obvious to all. He talked about how Pacheco runs fast, how Pacheco runs hard. It was what Reid didn't say that taught us volumes. He didn't say he runs great behind his blocks. He doesn't run the plays as called. He didn't say that he runs with nuance. Those are the things Pacheco has to develop to be a reliable NFL running back. Can he make a splash play? Yes, he has great speed. But notice Reed doesn't have him out there that much. He has him out there for purposes. And he's been very game plan specific, Reed has this year. And so there are going to be games where Pacheco starts. There was a week against Tampa Bay. Pacheco had 12 carries. Again, they were worried at the blitz in that game. And so Pacheco played. I think that's the litmus test. But even when he gets the start, it's no shakes he's going to get a lot of touches. He may be pass protecting more than not. So just be careful with that. Edwards-Helaire, same story. Touches have gone from 12 to 9 to 6. And part of that is, McKinnon is good as a pass receiver. I know the numbers aren't there, but they love what he does. He actually runs routes, and they like that about him. Where a lot of receivers are just dump offs and basic screens and wheels, but McKinnon's not that. They can actually nuance a route, and he can run that. Anthony, I'll cover that. I'm going to cover a question. That's a great question. I'll cover all the questions at the end, everybody. I definitely will get to them. Let me get through this, but I love the questions, and I'll get to them. But Edwards-Helaire seeing his workload go down. McKinnon's getting involved. Pacheco's involved a bit. So we do have this going on. But right now, Edwards-Helaire, who was very touchdown dependent, he's a dicey flex play right now because the volume is getting too low to trust for running back too. When you're touchdown dependent, they could keep coming. There's a world where it's a big touchdown season and he hasn't. That could happen. So understand that. But right now, he's not trending forward. And, oh my gosh, that Denver backfield, Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon, both 3 yards of carry backs. Now, the good news for them, and poor Boone, I love Mike Boone. Mike Boone is out in the IR with an ankle injury. I thought it was criminal all along. He wasn't ahead of both of them because he's the only explosive option they had. And talk about a team that needs explosiveness, but no, let's leave the explosive guy on the side anyway. So now they got their 2-3 yard per carry guys, and they'll split up some carries. I don't know how much in the red zone, so there may not be a lot of touchdown opportunities, especially when they play better defenses. But when they play bad defenses, they may have chances to perform for you at a flex plus level. Marlon Mack, you speak of no juice. Marlon Mack, no juice. Man, I wish he did. I like Marlon Mack when he was playing well. All right, last one, the big names, and then we'll get moving here. Tom Brady, just 2 touchdown pass over his last 3 games. I talked this up the other day. I don't want to bore you guys and gals, but I'll just kind of make the short form of this. Basically, right now, Brady's, aside from receivers who aren't fully healthy, he just has a rotating cast. Evans dings an ankle. He's off the injury report, but he was hobbling on and off the field. We don't know if Godwin's truly 100%. Russell Gage back. He had an MRI on his hamstring today. Julio hasn't been around. So he's missing weapons. But the other thing is defenses this year, they are running simulated pressures. I won't go long on this, okay? The simulated pressures are a lot of times a line 5 defensive linemen up, and they won't commit to who's rushing or not, or stunting until the snap of the ball. Brady always used to live off being able to know what the defense was doing before the snap. And now in zones aren't even committing until the snap. And so Brady doesn't have the pre-snap information that he had for a long, long time. And now with his receivers less than 100% and defenses, as I mentioned earlier, they're attacking individual weaknesses in the offensive line, and they have weaknesses on their offensive line, a couple liabilities. And so all this together, Brady's not probably coming out of this anytime soon. I know he has a couple 300-yard games. He had a garbage game against the Chiefs where they had to come from behind, and they played Atlanta. But otherwise, it has not been good for Tom Brady. And, let's just go from there. I think we are good from there. I think there's plenty on because we have, I think, questions here. I'm going to rotate some questions on Insta. I have some questions on YouTube, Twitter. Again, if you can smash the like button, it'd be great. Let me scroll down here. I'm going to have to do this. Sorry about this, but I'll see some questions. All right. So we had a question from Romy Zaid. I hope I said it right. Jacoby Myers or Bateman. So Bateman did show back up at practice. Apparently his foot is still not right. Now Tampa is down some cornerbacks. Carlton Davis, I think, was ruled out. Sean Murphy-Bunting is not expected to play. That certainly helps. But what scares me more is just the state of that passing game right now in Baltimore. Lamar's not throwing for any yards, and that's a huge problem that we're having here. So as to what we look for the passing game, there's not much upside here. Jacoby Myers is a great floor. And really the good news for him, Mac Jones is going to start this week. And that helps him. I think that's very important to have Mac Jones in there. So I do think that Myers has a similar floor to Bateman, but I think it's a higher floor. So I think you're going to go that route. And then we have a question from Jamie Eckler or Taylor rest of the season. It's got to be Eckler. I don't know if he holds up And that's the biggest question, right? Eckler's seeing too many touches right now, but they have no other option. And so you got easily, but because Taylor, they're not blocking up the run. Now, here's the hidden lining, though. All right, so Sam Ehlinger, that's a question I'm going to answer in a minute. Somebody had a question about Sam Ehlinger. All right, we're an Ehlinger. And look, I'm not going to tell you I definitively know what Sam Ehlinger is going to be as an NFL quarterback. I know he comes into the NFL and he has a weak arm, per the method, with the scouting. And he's mobile, though. And that's why they have him in. Matt Ryan, because the offensive line wasn't protecting. Defenses were getting a push, and Matt Ryan needs to step up into his throws because his arm isn't the same as when he was younger. And the run game was a problem because defenses are using these stunts to crash the run game as well. So Taylor had no room to run. That offensive line that used to be elite has two liabilities on it. Here's the thing. I assume Ehlinger's in because they want to run RPOs, get the mobile quarterback, minimize the offensive line, get some abnormal gaps going, keep the short, quick game to Paris Campbell, and more importantly, Michael Pittman, but open some room for Taylor. This is the only way they can manufacture it. So Taylor has a path to being the star he should be, but it's banking on a lot. So right now, Eckler's kind of more of a sure thing in that offense because they can't function without him. And Mike Williams is down for at least 4 weeks. He's on the IR now. So that's it. All right, I'm going to get some other question here. And then, so I think, Anthony, I think I answered your question about the Colts new quarterback when I answered that as well. For fantasy, you're hoping for scrambles and running. And I think that gives them an obvious super flex value. All quarterbacks have super flex value. So understand that. So knowing that, he has potential. With the lack of perceived arm strength, we don't know how high volume the passing game is going to be. Like I said, he has a natural built-in potential with Campbell and Pittman getting yardage after the catch. But I think to expect more than 1 to 1.5 touchdown average per game, I think average more than 220 yards a game, I think that's got to be the upward trajectory. They're hoping to fix the run game is what they're doing. And, if the quarterback could get him 30, 40 yards a game, that would be huge on the ground. That'd be huge. All right, caught up. All right, let's see other questions. Mark, should you trade Mixon for Swift and Kirk? So Kirk popped up last week, but my overall concern with Kirk is still this. Defenses that are understanding the Jaguars have no explosive element at wide receiver. What they're doing is they're compressing their defenses. They're giving over the top to teams like this because they don't think they can go over the top. And by doing that, it's tougher for the underneath guys to work. Christian Kirk had a number of slow games because of that. Last week, he found openings, and it worked out. I think more than not, he's going to struggle. Swift, I don't know what the guy's deal is. He's always hurt, right? And he practiced last week. He didn't play with the shoulder. He put an ankle on the report too. So I think it's very risky because other than the year he hurt his foot, Mixon's like always out there. And I think to have a reliable running back, I think there's a lot to that. Swift, my Rotowire team, Mario Puig, covers college really well. And he's talking about Swift had injuries in college. And every year of his NFL career has been injuries. I'll say no for that reason. The upside goes to Swift and Kirk. So if your team is like in fantasy trouble and you're going to miss the playoffs unless you hit a hot streak, then maybe you make the deal because Swift could get you 30 points a game if he's out there. Mixon can't really do that with the volume he's getting. So there's a world where you make that deal. But if your team is good right now and you want to maintain what you have, then I don't think you take that chance. All right. That got the next question here. If I can hold on a solid running back, then yes. Oh, you're answering. That's fine. Oh, and by the way, everybody, quick. This is important. You're in the fantasy league right now. Kyren Williams has apparently been activated from the injured reserve for the Rams. The Rams are desperate for running back help. They drafted Kyren Williams in the 5th round. I know he's like more of a receiver type. There's apparently a big plan in place for him. They need him desperately. And they don't like Darrell Henderson. You know that because that obviously he'd get a lot of work if they liked him. They wouldn't give Malcolm Brown 7 touches in the last game. If Kyren Williams is on and you could fit him on your roster, run right now. Ignore my show. Get over there and get Kyren Williams on your roster. But he could be helpful if you're in the running back starting. Most of us need running backs. I stashed him a couple of weeks ago, and I'm hoping he comes back quickly. All right, we got John. Should you trade Michael Carter for Michael Pittman. You have Barkley and Pierce, wide receivers, Amon-Ra, D-Hop, Olave, and Pickens. So you're loaded at receiver. So you have Jonathan Taylor too. So I'm not sure which side of the deal we're on here. You look at you're loaded at receiver. So if you're getting a running back to give up Pittman, then I think you add the running back because we always need running back. If you're on the other side of it and you're acquiring Pittman, I don't know that you're starting Pittman over them. You start him over Pickens for sure. So that's how I'd frame that one. If there's anything more specific, go ahead and pop that in the chat and I'll answer it. John, Brady's been on the climb for a while. I love you, man. It's awesome. But look back to last year, though. Brady was still playing at a great level. He had an offensive line last year. He ripped the league up last year. He won me a fantasy title in the Kings Classic. So I can't argue, but I love what you said there. But, it's been situations around him. Tom Brady can't work around this right now, but I respect you. I respect you. Jamie, Dawson Knox or Harrison Bryant. So Knox has started to pop up. He's got like 35 yards in his last 2 games, which is not much, but it's something, right? And his backup, the game he was out, had like 35 yards. So, but there's been no upside, right? And Harrison Bryant, we're not sure what his role is going to be. We know he blocks quite a bit, but they really don't have the depth and number of tight ends they had, and he's been getting targets. I don't think he moves into David Njoku's role because he's not that type of athlete, but I do think he has a higher floor than Knox, and I think that's why I prefer Harrison Bryant. But now remember, Njoku probably, they said 2 to 5 weeks, so probably 4 weeks he comes back. And so when he comes back, then Bryant goes back. But it's not like Dawson Knox has been knocking out of the park anyway. I think it's really a wide receiver-centric offense they have going on right now. So I still probably lean to Bryant. But just remember, you may lose him when Njoku comes back. John, some scrub in my league, is offering you Zeke for Lamb and Jamal Williams. So it is a decline because Zeke has a sprained MCL. I just saw that. I'm trying to remember the letters here. I think it's an MCL. And last year, look, Zeke plays through every injury. And last year, he played through an injury in this, I think it was PCL last year, played through the whole second half, every game, but his production was not what it could have been. And so I think what happens now is Dallas might pass a little bit more. They eased in Prescott last week. So just something to consider there. Let me see if I have a couple of questions there. It's good. All right. Cameron, did you drop Elijah Mitchell? CMC, Megalon, Hines, Madison, Eli Mitchell. You know what? If Christian McCaffrey's going to run the ball inside, we don't know yet for the 49ers. He's been hurt a lot the last few years. That run offensive scheme has torn up a lot of running backs. It's a one-cut system. You make a hard cut to the outside, you plant your foot in the ground, you got to cut back. It's a violent running system. That's why it chops up running backs. So if you could, I would prefer to dump Hines. I don't know that the Sam Ellingers going to be throwing him the ball out there doing RPO stuff. Madison would be my real one to go because, he saw a snapshot go back down last week. He was getting close to 40% for the low, but it went back way down like in the 20s. And I really think he's only useful if Cook is out. But Eli Mitchell, if he's going to be back in a few weeks, if McCaffrey goes down, I still think Mitchell is an amazing running back, but personal preference. But I would try to hold Mitchell if you can. But if you need these other guys to start because of bye weeks and injuries, you got to dump him because he's not available right now. Ty, oh, thank you. I appreciate that greatly. Yes, pick up Kyron Williams now. I don't know who's on your bench, but you got Pitts, Dillon, Brian Robinson, George Pickens, and Wandale. I think you want to keep Wandale. I think Wandale's trending up. I think he could be a big deal in this offense right now. Man, if you have another tight end, drop Pitts. Because the worst thing about Kyle Pitts as a fantasy manager is having him on your roster because you've got to bench him each week. You know how hard it is to bench Kyle Pitts knowing how great of a talent he is? So I would drop Pitts if you have another tight end. That's what I would do. I got a question on Insta. PNLB, you have Monty and Herbert for Chicago. Looks like a tie. I know. I still think Monty has the edge because we've seen Herbert sneak into the timeshare and then Monty gets going and they lean his way. I still think Monty takes the lead here. And I know Herbert's looked better. He has looked better. But I think ultimately Montgomery's going to get more in the red zone. And I know Herbert scored. I get it. I still think it's like 60-40. I still think it's 60-40 Monty. The Bears, for whatever reason, can't quit him. That's how I kind of see it. All right, let's see. We got Cameron. Would Pacheco or Tyquan Thornton be a better player? I think Thornton would be. Thornton, well, he didn't get much last week, and in his game, they probably should have gotten him the ball, but they were integrating him pretty quickly. I still think Pacheco is going to be that. And the reason is, all right, and I don't know that you're starting either of them, right? But if Thornton has a chance to become a bigger part of the offense as the weeks go by, they really want him involved. They invested draft capital, and he's looked good so far in his opportunities. I mentioned earlier, Pacheco at best as a blocker. He had one garbage time carry to get him 4 yards. Even when he's a starter, it was 30% of the snaps, and it wasn't much work. So I would say Thornton. That's what I would say. All right, let's see what we got here. Jacob. 10-man, half PPR. Drop Brandon Cooks for Wandale. You know, now here's your caveat. If Cooks gets traded, he goes to a good situation. And there's a little bit of buzz out there. I mean, the Texans could deal him. And if Cooks goes to a team with a good offense, oh my gosh, he's a super talented player. I just think he's probably disinterested right now being in the Texans offense. Wandale's going to be a good player. He was like 6 for 50 last week, and he finally got a decent snap share. They eased him in. It was like 60+% snap share. So that was real solid. And so I think Wandale's going to be a thing. But if Brandon Cooks gets dealt, then you're going to be like, oh. But right now, assuming he stays in Houston, yeah, I think with the little bit Cooks has been doing, yeah, I think you make that move for Wandale. They have nobody else right now. All right, John Doe. You haven't seen anyone discuss, but you haven't had a small blurb on Beckham Jr. Yes, the blurb. Yes, people are trying to sign him. The most recent report I got, he's going to be ready mid-December. Odell Beckham is all about being ready for the NFL playoffs, not the fantasy football playoffs. If he comes in mid-December, that means he gets eased in a game or two, and then he's a full go in the NFL playoffs. So, no, do not add him. Unless you have absolutely nothing. If you know you're making it, for most likely making it to the fantasy championship game, and it's a depth piece, but yeah, I can't advocate it because I think it's going to be mid-December until he's ready to roll. All right, here, JP, you're wondering if you try to trade Jalen Waddle and Darren Waller for Adams and Kittle. Wow, they're not getting Waller the ball. Now, Kittle doesn't always get the ball either. And now with Christian McCaffrey, we really wonder how the touch distribution is going to go. And if Shannon gets his running game going, I think we're back to Kittle seeing up and down targets. But ultimately, Waller's not getting much either. So Waller is healthy. I mean, Kittle's healthier, and Waller's had a star-crossed season. So I think there's an upgrade there. And, ultimately, Adams is, Waddle's had his splash games. But Devontae's seeing a great floor of targets, and, you would think as the season goes on, they're going to have to get away from that running game a little bit and get him the ball more. I probably side on the Devontae Kittle side 60-40. Both sides are great. It's a very nice trade. And you got Higbee, so you're in good shape. Oh, yeah, definitely. You're starting Higbee, right, for sure. John, you had Waller trade him for Henderson, but thinking about flipping for a better wide receiver. Yeah, no doubt. JP, then seen an offer, send Brady, Sanders, and Waddle for Kyler, Kamara, and St. Brown. Oh, yeah, if you're getting St. Brown because somebody's upset because he had concussion last week and he's coming off the injury, but he should be wheels up going forward. And Kamara, Andy Dalton, supposedly going to be the quarterback again, so that probably means going forward. And Kamara's through the roof with Dalton because Dalton throws to him where Jameis doesn't. So, yeah, wheels up there. Jamie, in deeper leagues, our 3 receivers and a flex are Peoples-Jones. You know what? Part of Marquise Goodwin's production last week is J.C. Jackson fell down and tore his knee, the poor guy, on the play. And that was part of his big production. Ultimately, we've seen Marquise Goodwin. We've seen him in good situations, and it just hasn't been there. So, look, at this point, Peoples-Jones like 70 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. And his other game, he put up yards too. So he's a part. And with Njoku out, and Njoku is kind of like the de facto number 2. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a player. If he's not rostered in your leagues out there, roster him, put him on. And when they get Watson at quarterback, he'll be even better, I think. But this week and forward, Peoples-Jones. John, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Very nice of you. Jacob, will John not to be a wide receiver? Well, it's depending on the quarterback, right? Heineke, and he didn't have other options when in the past year when he threw to McLaurin, but you could tell he locks on McLaurin. He loves McLaurin. He feels safe with him, right? And who wouldn't? Terry McLaurin, right? And then Samuel's getting his targets. And I think ultimately Jahan Dotson's missing out on some of this practice time working with Heineke. And I know eventually Wentz will be back, but who knows if Wentz keeps the job because Wentz is Wentz. So I think right now he can't be a wide receiver too because Heineke, I don't know, has the chemistry with him right now. That's why I'm concerned. John Dotson's amazingly talented, and he's going to be something big in this league. I just think that the missed time is going to hurt him. And then John, Hurts versus Otten or Dulcich for tight end. Hurts. Jalen Hurts, I'm thinking, but you're on my tight end here. What am I missing? Oh, Jacob, thank you. Yeah, if you can click the like, I'd appreciate it greatly. John, amend that question. Hurts, I'm thinking Jalen Hurts. You got to explain something that I'm missing here. And Mr. AC22 on Insta has a question. Higbee or Jacoby Myers for your second flex? You know what? So Higbee's been living on a lot of screens, and that's been beautiful for his fantasy production. I have to think, and I may be wrong, I know McVay worked on things during the bye. I think not throwing a ton of screens to Higbee is going to be one of those. We saw in the last game, he went away from him a bit. I think there's going to be other facets to the offense that they're going to do than throwing screens to the tight end. So I think Myers' role. And I think you're good with the floor he'll have. So I think you stick with Myers this week. I think you'd like to see what Higbee's role coming out of the bye is. I didn't like that last week, and I think the direction could be going back where he's getting 4 or 5 targets instead of 9 to 11. That's just my take on it. All right, and then Jacob. Oh, thanks, man. And then Jamie. Oh, good. Yeah, Hayden Hurst. Yeah, that makes sense. Hurts. You caught the little letter flip. I didn't catch that. Doing too many questions. That's good. So let's see. Jamie, I think that guy was Hayden Hurst. So Hayden Hurst, Cade Otten, or Dulcich. So right now, they're all going to get targets, right? I have to think Cade Otten will be heavily involved in the Thursday game. Russell Gage apparently he's out. He ruled out. Julio, we don't know what we're getting with him. Mike Evans is off the injury report, but I saw him gimping with an ankle. I think Otten was a great play last week. We advocated him. I think we just say Brady's going to throw to the middle of the field. That's just a way of life. And so I like the potential of Otten with a floor here. Julia, good to see you. Happy Wednesday. Glad you're here. I'm about out, so I don't see any other questions there. It's been a long show, but I'm glad, wow, we went 36 minutes. Wow, it was pretty good. Good to see everybody. Now, the weekly live stream start sit. We remember we do that on Sundays, 2 hours for here. There's a London game this week. So the start sit live stream will be on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So again, the live stream starts on the Rotowire YouTube page. It'll also be on Instagram. If you can get YouTube, that's probably better. It's easier for me to read the questions, but I can get to them all. I'll give you the why so you can make your best decision. All right, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Have a